good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to the 106 in Mass podcast. I have the pleasure today of introducing, for some and for others, you already know her, Dr. Edwanna Andrews, who is our Assistant Vice President of Student Affairs and the Student Development and Enrollment Services. Dr. Andrews, welcome to the 106 in Mass podcast.
Thank you, Mr. J. I am so excited to be here.
And we are excited to have you. So let's start off. Let's go back to your childhood. Let's talk about where you grew up and, what growing up for Dr. Andrews was like. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Okay, so I grew up in a small town on the west side of Florida called Bradenton, Florida. It was very much a football town, so Friday Night Lights, that was us. If it was Friday night, you were at one of the local football games, and so there were rivalries. And so I went to the prestigious, awesome, phenomenal Southeast High School. And we were state champs, and we were kicking butt left and right. And it was a great town to grow up in. I learned a lot about who I am. It really helped to instill my core values. And it was close to the beach. While growing up, I didn't spend much time at the beach. I did develop an affinity and affection for water because it helps to center me. And so when I am feeling crunchy, I am going to the beach.
Hold up, you said when you're feeling crunchy? What is that?
It's when you're not necessarily stressed, but it's just like you just know something is off. And so before you start getting like, wow, you just like a little crunchy. And so it's in those moments where I know I have got to get next to or in some water that's not a bathtub. I need to find an ocean.
So what does the water do for you?
It helps to relax me. It helps me to center myself because I am able to just look at the marvelous wonder of the waves coming in and how they just lull back and forth. And I love going to the Gulf beaches because the sand is white. And it's just my space. I will get an umbrella and a chair. I will bring a lunch. I will fall asleep and wake up and still be on the beach. I absolutely love the beach.
So, ladies and gentlemen, whenever you feel crunchy,
yes,
make sure you go to a beach, okay?
Yes.
All right. So let's talk about now. You went to University of Central Florida. What was your major? You did a bachelor's, a master's, a PhD there. So let's talk about this education piece because a lot of the students that are listening to this, they're probably in school, and so you can provide them with some insights on how'd you end up where you are based on what your degree might have been in undergrad, what you decided to do in master's, and then what you did with the PhD.
Yeah, so I have 3 very eclectic degrees because they do not complement each other or go together. So my bachelor's was in advertising public relations. And so after graduating, I was like, ooh, I'm gonna do public relations. I had a job lined up with a local hotel company, but it just wasn't for me. I wanted to actually teach. But you know how we do. I got too far along to change my major, and it would have delayed my graduation by 2 years. And I was like, my mama said I gotta be done in 4. So I ended up continuing with my degree, and so once I graduated, I did alternative certification to earn a teaching certificate to teach language arts grades in middle school grades. So I taught for a year, and it was a huge eye-opener because I wanted to teach to be able to get those aha moments. My stepmother was an educator. I loved school. I loved learning. I was one of those geek kids, but I was still cool. And I wanted to provide that to the students. But when I went into the public school system, I discovered it was a little bit more political than I was willing to engage in. And so I still, I love you teachers. Those who are studying for education, go forth. You will be the difference and the change that we desperately need. But I recognize it was not for me. And so I came back to UCF and ended up working as OPS. So I wasn't getting, I was getting paid hourly, but no benefits.
Mm.
And as I was working, there were others around me that were like, if you want to continue to work in higher education at UCF, you should get a master's degree. And I was like, okay. So I started honestly getting a master's degree and not really understanding why I was getting it. I was getting it because these women who I admired said, if you want to continue, do this. And so it wasn't until my second semester in grad school where it clicked and I understood why it was important to get an education in higher ed. And so I was doing the Master's of Education and Student Personnel Services. And so once I graduated with my master's degree, I was like, I'm done. I'm good. Nope, I'm good. Doctorate degree, nope, not interested. Thanks, but no thanks. I even went to a colleague's dissertation defense. She asked me if I would take notes for her while she did her presentation and stuff. And during that experience, I was about to pass out. I was like, oh my God, this is like way too much. I don't want to do this. But what happened was I continued to work at UCF, and I continued to encourage students to push past their barriers, push past their fears, push past their doubts, and realize I was a hypocrite. I wasn't going back to get my doctorate degree because that meant I had to take the GRE again. And being honest and transparent, I got into my master's degree as a provisional admit. So I had to prove to them that I was smart enough to get my master's degree. And so that first year I had to earn at least a 3.0 GPA. Now, of course, that first year I earned a 4.0.
Of course.
But still. And so I was afraid that I would have to take the GRE again and I wouldn't get the score I needed. And it would devastate me and I would never be able to recover. But again, working in higher education and pushing our students to achieve, I had to push myself. And so I ended up pushing myself and getting the GRE score, and I prepared for a year. I studied, I hired a tutor, all that stuff, and was able to earn my PhD in sociology.
Excellent. Now you talked about passion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you said you were a middle school teacher and you just weren't feeling right. And so, when you think about passion for all the students that are out there, what can you tell them? What do they need to be looking for in regards to that job, and they might not feel comfortable with it, or they're just not sure about which direction they should take?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And the best thing that I can offer to them is to actually read this book that was shared with me. It's called The One Thing. And this book, when you read it, it's really helping you to identify that one thing that you are passionate about. And you will discover reading this book that that one thing shows up in everything that you do. And so my one thing is teaching. I love to teach. I love being an educator. And so while I am not in the classroom full time, I still get opportunities to teach. And it shows up in everything I do, even in my personal life. In my church, I teach our new members class. So it shows up every single place in my life. And it's truly my passion because I love learning and I love to impart knowledge to others.
So you're the assistant vice president, SDES. Let's talk about that. What does that job entail? What do you like about it? And what are some of the things you're like, if I could get rid of that?
What I love is interacting with students, learning their story, hearing their stories, seeing how I can be a resource for them, help them to decrease barriers. I enjoy being able to help decrease barriers for the units that fall in my portfolio. One thing that I hate is the budget. Like, I need an unlimited budget. Not only for myself, but for my areas, because we do so much with the little that we have. we make such a huge impact. And if we had more funding, what, man, the impact we could make for real? And so I try to convey that message a lot to leadership. But it is true, like when you have additional funds, you can have such a bigger impact. I mean, look at the Mass Student Success Conference. We know without a doubt that students who attend this conference are so successful. If we had additional funding, we can increase the number of students that attend this conference. And so, again, the budget. Anybody, want to donate some money?
It's about those dollars.
Holler at us. Holler at us.
Show me the money.
Yes.
That is so true. So then you mentioned your portfolio. So talk about that. The departments that are underneath of you and what those departments do.
Yeah. So all of my areas are amazing. We have, of course, the Multicultural Academic Support Services Office, led by you, Mr. J, and your
Hello.
fabulous team. And then we have Social Justice and Advocacy, and underneath them is LGBT plus services and the Multicultural Student Center. Additionally, we have TRIO programs. And so we currently have 5 federally funded TRIO grants. We have 3 Upward Bound programs, and we're in the Popka High School, Edgewater High School, and at East River High School. And then we have 2 SSS grants, which is Student Support Services, for our collegiate students who are interested in STEM majors, as well as those who are interested in non-STEM majors. And so we're able, through the SSS grants, we're able to serve 144 students for Prime STEM and 124 students for Project Best. And so we're able to help these students achieve their dream of earning a college degree. Because, when you go off to college, the goal is that you'll get a degree. That's what your family is looking for you to do. That's what you're looking to do. But they don't tell you all of the bumps and bruises and things that you will encounter over those 4 years. And so one of the things that I absolutely love about my areas is that we are literally there from the beginning when you step on UCF until the end. We work with students in the Access Program, Mass, y'all do your thing. So when students come in during the summer, we're there. And then the Multicultural Student Center and your office also does graduation celebrations at the end. And so we're there from the beginning, literally to the end, there to welcome you and there to celebrate your success at the end.
I want to go back a quick second because I had this written down. I'm going to go back to that PhD because I remember you were defended. You were finally called Dr. Andrews, and I remember seeing, I think it was your mom there, I think maybe your aunt was there. Talk to me about that. What did that mean for you to know that your family was there? And I'm sure they were extremely proud of you, but I'm sure that meant something for you to have them there.
Absolutely. My PhD journey, I went through a lot of personal things during that journey. And so to have my mom there from the beginning of the journey to the end, my mom was there, her best friend, who's my godmother, my aunt was there, and my son. It was amazing. I can't even describe the feeling, put it into words, because my dissertation was actually, the thought and the idea behind the dissertation was developed because of my mom's best friend and her best friend, my godmother. Their classmate had HIV, and he was African American male, and he identified as gay, homosexual. And he loved his church. Oh my gosh, Lee Booster Clemens loved his church. And he was very much a part of contributing to the church. And when he passed away, there was a lot of conversation that happened in the Black church about his homegoing services and if it was appropriate for his church to hold those homegoing services because of how he identified and lived his life. And that's something as a little girl, I was in elementary school when this happened. I never forgot the conversations that I heard and the reactions that I saw. And I wanted to dig deeper into what that relationship was like, the Black church and the lesbian, gay, and bisexual community. And so to have them there, that they were part of planting that seed initially and they never even knew about it, to have them see me share about the experiences, share the voices of those that don't usually talk in the Black church was absolutely amazing.
You know, maybe on another podcast we'll come back and we'll talk specifically about that.
Yes.
But we're coming close to the end, and I wanted to, what are some of the things that you would tell young people now? Either if they're in high school, maybe they're a freshman, they're a sophomore, or a junior, or a senior. What is some advice you would give them? Because I'm sure when you were in high school, you were not thinking, you know what? One day I'm going to get myself a PhD. So what advice would you give them? Because sometimes we think so small of ourselves that because maybe we came from a country town or maybe we come from another country, that these things are for other people. They're not necessarily for us. What advice would you give them?
Man, the advice that I would give is, one, identify your core values and hold true to those values, and know that you do not have to change your core values for nothing. For example, you talked about a country town. One of the things that I am known for doing with my family is taking my shoes off. So even as we sit here and do this podcast, my shoes are off. My shoes are off. And if I continue to talk, you will start hearing the country twang in my voice.
Oh gosh.
And so stay true to who you are, because that you will get to where you want to go by staying true to who you are. One of the things that I tell my son is, how can you set yourself up for success? Because you define what success means to you. And so how can you set yourself up for success? And always have that question in your head. Yes, society says, oh, well, if you do this, you're successful. Oh, if you have this much money, you're successful. No, you set yourself up for success because you define what success means. So how can you best set yourself up for success? And there's reason to look at the big picture, but know that the big picture is made up of small moments. And so identify small things that you can do each and every day that will make up that big picture that you are looking at.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it from the great Dr. Edwanna Andrews. Thank you so much for being a part of 106 in Mass podcast.
Yes.
And stay tuned next month when we'll have another exciting guest. So be out there, be safe, and we'll see you next time. This is Wayne Jackson saying, take care, everyone.